Hi, my name's Tina Hoffman. I just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself and tell you why I started Laughing's Easier. I have lived in Regina, Saskatchewan in Canada for 30 years and have been married to my husband Brent for 34 years. We have 3 grown kids. Our oldest is Matt, who's married to Angela, and they have 2 daughters, Samantha and Catherine. Matt is a carpenter and Angela is a teacher. Our middle child is Becca, and she is a handler for a bed bug sniffing dog and also works as a dog trainer. Our youngest is Rachel, and she and her boyfriend Alex have our youngest grandchild, Addison. Both Rachel and Alex work as paramedics. I was a fairly typical teenager growing up in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I competed in track and field, played soccer, basketball, and volleyball. I loved to just get out and run as fast and as far as I could when I was stressed. When I was 15 years old, I was walking home from school with 4 of my friends. It was the first snowfall of the year, and a truck driving way too fast for road conditions lost control, crashed through the chain link fence, and hit 3 of us. I had a lot of injuries, but what turned out to be the one that changed my life wasn't found for 2 years, thanks to a bad doctor. It wasn't until my 3rd surgery 2 years later by a different doctor that I learned that I had a broken knee. By that time, it had caused arthritis so badly that the doctor predicted I could be in a wheelchair within 7 years. I needed a new knee, but they don't replace knees on 18-year-olds. So there I was. Brent and I had just gotten engaged, and I was facing a very uncertain future. I had already dealt with depression during the long recovery after the accident, when I had to find different ways to deal with stress since I was never able to run again. When I told Brent, I said that this isn't what you signed up for, so if you want to walk away now, I understand. Of course he didn't, and he's been by my side through it all ever since. Raising my family, I needed to find ways to stay involved in their activities so that I could be a part of their memories, although in a slightly modified way. The example that most often comes to mind is when we would go tobogganing. I may make it up the hill once, but my knee would refuse any more trips than that. So we found a hill that had a picnic area near the bottom. While Brent played with the kids on the hill, I watched and I kept a campfire going at the bottom. When they got cold or tired, they joined me for a cup of hot chocolate, a hot dog, and some time with their boots off, warming their toes by the fire. Although I couldn't take part directly, those are some of our fondest memories. In fact, that place was so special to us that my son proposed to his wife there. I had many surgeries on my knee, trying to keep it going through the years, but still no replacement. Until I was 40, when I had a nasty fall and tore several ligaments. The surgeon said that I would need surgery to repair them, but there was no point on a knee that was in such bad shape. So finally, after more than 20 years, I was put on the list for a new knee. This was going to change my life. Because of my inactive lifestyle, I had gained a lot of weight. This new knee would change that. I may not be able to run, but I could walk, and I envisioned the weight melting off as I was able to be more active. Brent left a bike ride, and I could finally join him. But when I finally got the replacement, 2 years later, it didn't quite work out that way, although it did change my life. In the very beginning, it was expected to be about a 5-day hospital stay. Mine was 3 weeks, and then I moved to a rehabilitation hospital for another 3 weeks before I was able to go home. My therapy was hard, but I worked hard at it and was making good progress until about 4 months in, when over a weekend, my ability to bend my knee dropped dramatically. My therapist knew something was wrong and sent me back to the surgeon. Over the next 2 years, I had test after test, all showing that everything was fine. But it didn't matter how hard I worked at my therapy, my results just kept dropping off and the pain kept climbing. Finally, the surgeon decided to replace the replacement, and when he removed it, all kinds of nastiness flowed from the bone. All of the tests he had done showed false negatives for infection, and now it was well set in. Over the next 3 years, I was in and out of hospitals, rehabilitation facilities, and even nursing homes. I had 2 more knees in and out, my kidneys failed, and I nearly died. I spent the last year in my living room in a hospital bed, with nursing care, on oxygen, and on so much pain medication that I slept about 22 hours a day. My kids were grown and living on their own by then, but they would come by every Sunday for a visit. They would hug me and kiss me and when they got there, and then I would fall back to sleep, only waking again when they would hug and kiss me goodbye. I was depressed and lonely and seriously considered suicide. I told myself that this was no life for me, my husband, or my children, and it didn't seem to have an end in sight. As a Christian, I believe that when I die, I will go to heaven where I will get a new body, free of sickness and pain. I wanted that now. I would force heaven's gates open for me, ready or not. I called my kids together to tell them my plan and to make them understand why I was ending my life. I didn't need their permission, but I wanted them to understand. It was my beautiful new daughter-in-law that gave me the kick in the pants I needed to keep going. She said that she never knew my mom, who had passed away a few years earlier after a long fight with ovarian cancer, but from what she did know, she never gave up, and that I shouldn't either. So I continued to fight, still not seeing an end in sight, but with a renewed faith. Finally, I was back in the hospital, raging infection, making me very sick, and a huge hole in my shin. I had been asking the surgeon about amputation, and he outright refused over and over again. He was going to do surgery yet again, and I asked him, "How many times do we do this?" His reply was, "As many as it takes." I thought, no way, I have had enough. This was no life for me or my family, and I was done. By this time, I had had countless surgeries, tough recoveries, and 5 years of torture. I was weak and very dependent on pain meds. So I told him that even if they were able to somehow get rid of the infection, and realistically, if they could have, they would have by then, there was no way I would ever consent to another knee replacement. Finally, he reluctantly agreed and amputated my leg above the knee the next day. It was the best decision I could have made. I quickly got well again. I still had a long recovery, but I began feeling better, and I was able to come off the painkillers over a 3-month period, not the year the pain specialist would have recommended, and I had a new lease on life. The only things that got me through such a difficult time was my faith in my God, my family, and my sense of humor. As a Christian, I believe that the plan for my life was known before I was even created, and who am I to say that the creator of all things doesn't know what he's doing? I may not like the plan, but I have to trust and continue to live the best way that I can. For me, that includes loving people and keeping my sense of humor. Now, by telling you this, I want you to understand that I'm not trying to force my faith on you. This is my story, and it isn't complete without telling you what keeps me going. At this point, my amputation was 6 years ago. I have had gastric bypass surgery and have lost 130 pounds, which has allowed me to be more active. I used a prosthesis for about 6 months, but now my other knee should be replaced and will never, ever, ever happen. And it didn't like walking very much. So I have decided to save it for the long haul and have opted for a power wheelchair. I've worked as a costume designer for a local theater company. I run my own business as a seamstress, adapting people's wardrobes to meet their new needs. And I'm working out of the same rehab hospital I lived in for such a long time. I have a parrot that I take with me to the hospital and we visit residents. I kayak, I scuba dive, I swim, I do deep water aerobics and aqua kickboxing with Brent. And my next challenge is to try to figure out how to ride horses again. Life is grand now, but not without its challenges. I recently had surgery number 30. About 10 of them had nothing to do with my leg. What an awful number, and I have to say, I did have a difficult time getting my head around breaking that 30 barrier. But life goes on, with or without us. I have learned that in every situation, we all get a choice to either laugh or cry. Laughing's easier.